Welcome to Beachside Tech Talk. My name is Ian Utilli, and I am here with the team at 1340 AM, KOMY, the home of Schoolhouse Radio. The question for the day is, what impact does innovation and technology make on our identity? So I'm here with Dan and Malachi. We got Ted. We got Nigel. It's all of us here. It's a big party. Hello, party people. How are all of you?
Party people. Hello.
We also got Riza. I got a microphone in front of Riza. Maybe she'll even say something today. Usually she's just back here doing all the operational stuff to make sure she.
I'm glad you brought Riza in because I kind of see her as a expert in identity.
She's fixed.
Yeah, I agree.
She's helped fix my identity. Made me feel.
Yeah, not only is she secure in her own identity, she fixed one of the test cases of the most difficult.
Well, what's that supposed to mean? Never mind. I don't want you to answer that. You keep that. So, I think identity is a really big thing that people don't think a lot about when it comes to technology's impact. So first, let's define identity. So who wants to take a stab at defining identity? What do we collectively, the six of us, mean when we talk about identity? When we say, what impact does technology, innovation make on our identity? What is identity? So how do you guys define that word, that term?
I'd be interested in how AI or a dictionary defines identity. But the way I identify identity is who we see ourselves as, our self-image. The immediate thing that came up is, I think it's like the Matrix, like we think about it all the time, but don't realize we're thinking about it because it's prevailing our worldview, how we see ourselves fitting into the world.
I just looked up the etymology, which is like the origin of the word itself, of identity. And it says its Latin origin, identitas, means like sameness or oneness, which I feel like is quite different than what we mean now. I think a definition that we constantly have is like the qualities, characteristics, or beliefs that make someone who they are, that distinguish a person, or that could be a thing. Something can have an identity. As you said plenty of times, Dad, the AI might have its own identity. But I wasn't expecting it to be something that has changed so much over time.
I think we live with a couple identities, honestly. Seems that, we live with the identity of ourselves and how we know ourselves. We talk about it earlier in the week that when we see someone behaving badly, we are easily to criticize their behaviors. But then when we do that same action or something similar, we go a lot easier on ourselves. And so for identity, I'll just be honest. And it seems like we live maybe two or more.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can lean into finding a one identity. But the identity of, just as Ted had mentioned, it's yourself, who you are, who you see as yourself, and then that is a certain area of an identity. But then what do you project your identity to be out in the world? Is it lining up with who you see yourself as that identity? So they line up one and one.
Yep.
And that's, I think that will lean into a trust factor, and that's where the transparency type of thing comes in. But identity is a real, to me, it's a philosophical type of discussion, and it could mean so many things for many different people. But and then we can do it to where it's lighthearted. We can just do an identity of, here's my driver's license.
Right.
I mean, how deep are we wanting to go with our identity? Are we soul searching right now? Yeah. Are we, trying to, and then we're always trying to figure ourselves out. I don't care. I don't care how much you're confident in your identity.
Yes.
You're going to change. And then how about the strangeness of, scientifically, it's like every 7 years they say about or so, you just change.
Yes.
Think about yourself 7 years ago. You don't think
I'm definitely a different person.
I mean,
definitely.
So there, what's our identity if it's going to change, 12, 13 times in your life.
Yep.
Or adjust. I don't want to say, like we're different personality identity type of thing, but you're just going to evolve, and as you grow, when you're different than you're 20, and then when you're 27, and when you're 34, and so I think your identity is always going to be an evolving characteristic of yourself, and hopefully we're doing the best that we can.
The 7 years thing, it's even more exaggerated for someone like me, or even someone who's in their like 20s. I am completely different than I was a whole year ago.
Right, because you're 16.
Because I'm 16. That's such a large difference.
There's that period, that age.
I think the younger you are,
puberty and all that.
It is.
That's the most dramatic change.
0 to 7. That's a no-brainer.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't think,
From 0 to
speak, talk,
2.
act. You didn't know how to. Couldn't clean yourself. Couldn't feed yourself.
Right.
And then 7 years later, here you are. And then your second 7 years, you've entered into an adolescence.
Yeah.
So you're changing. Your body's changing, and and so you are constantly evolving and finding out our identity while we try to hold on in a lifetime span. We're trying to hold on to certain core values that they never change, but we are always evolving as we grow older. So
Nigel, you want to jump in? I thought Dan gave an incredible insight on identity. I resonate so much with what you just shared.
Yeah.
The identity we project is probably the closest we're going to get to expressing it here.
Mm-hmm.
But we all know who we are.
Yeah.
And the reason I could say that with such confidence is, and I've come to understand this over the last 2.5 years more than anything else, of just doing more praying. The only honest relationship I believe we have is with God. Knows everything, sees everything, full context. He is the Grok heavy of heavies.
knows more than you do.
Yeah, no doubt.
All
About
day
you.
long. All the context, the full unabridged version. And nothing we do is going to change that. So like, as much as we evolve, he already knows. So there's nothing to hide. I think we get closer. People, the folks who are closer to us, meaning, and when I say closer, I mean not just in proximity, but the amount of time they spend with us. And that may vary from time to time. They get to understand you better.
Yeah.
They get to see who you are better. Because just like we were talking about, you may have seen aspects of people that none of us have seen, but you know they exist.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
God knows everything. So I feel like there's a bit of that, and we just have to acknowledge that's where it is. What we project, I think the closer we get to not having to project and just be, that's how we're getting closer to our true selves. And it's with anything,
Yep.
Identity is so closely tied to theology and our philosophy over life.
Yeah, if we defined theology as our belief of the supernatural or spiritual things, and philosophy as our belief of kind of scientific, more practical, things that we are tangible.
A philosopher is defined as a lover of wisdom.
I like that definition a lot.
That's at least the original Greek definition.
Well, let's get the female perspective. Risa,
Yeah.
I'm looking at you in the camera. I can see you.
Really?
Even though the radio can't see us. If you want to see us, you can go onto any of the social media sites at IANUTILE, where we also broadcast this exact same conversation.
When you see it, it isn't util or utile. It's utility.
That's true. Risa, what's your thought on identity? How would you define identity? What do you think about what Ted, Nigel, Dan, and Malachi have already shared?
Well, the word identity, I have been asked already that kind of question from my students many times, and I always say the same thing because the word identity, it's one of those words that has many definitions, and it depends on what lens we use. It can be personal, social, cultural, or philosophical. So in short, identity, it's both who you say you are and who others recognize you to be.
Yeah, it's not just internal. It's also based off the inputs of others as well.
Yeah.
You want to hear something?
Go ahead,
A
Ted.
very interesting fact. You're probably all familiar with like dissociative identity disorder. It used to be called multiple personality disorder, and the mental dysfunction of when someone who suffers trauma, they'll black out, and then they'll be a completely different person. Sometimes it's a gender swap or whatever. The voice will change completely, the mannerisms, everything. Their latest understanding of that is that actually it's kind of a breakdown of something that is a natural occurrence with every human being. We all have multiple personalities in the sense, or different identities according to the context. So like you'll see this most pronounced in someone who's bilingual. Often they switch language, and it's like their mannerisms switch, they're performing in that language, and it's much more than just one language, particularly someone who's like a native speaker and all that. I see that with Sandra, like when she goes to the Portugal. Or another thing, like when Sandra first met me, I'd retired from playing basketball professionally, so she got to know me for a while before she actually saw me play basketball competitively. She's like, oh, you're a totally different person. You're not laid back. You're not casual. You're not easygoing Ted, and it's the same with her too. Like if you see her, I mean, she's the kindest, gentlest. You watch her when she's teaching dance, ballet, she transforms into like this drill sergeant. I mean, a very loving drill sergeant, but she's super intense. And we all have these different personalities where we act differently in different contexts, and that's just part of the complexity of who we are. And identity is it's a communal social thing in that sense.
Yeah, it is interesting how much identity was different for our ancestors. So if we try to put ourselves in the place of our ancestors, we did talk a little bit about titles yesterday. How titles have maybe become less important. Titles and roles were super important for our ancestors. Our ancestors may have only had dozens of people or hundreds of people, very rarely thousands of people that they would interact with, right? They have their family, they have their community. There's probably a lot of death, a lot of disease, a lot of mistakes. There's not hospitals. There's not easy access to food. There's not easy access to transportation. There's no technology. You know what the technology was? Things like roads.
Yeah.
Seriously, like we talk a lot about Jesus on our show. Our show is quite philosophical and even theological in terms of our perspective of technology, the way it's playing out and things. What was the technology of Jesus' day?
The roads.
The Roman roads. That changed everybody's identity. All of a sudden, it went from our ancestors 3,000 years ago being in little tiny areas that they couldn't really get anywhere because there's no easy path to get there. And now all of a sudden, 2,000 years ago, roads are put in place so that Rome could go ahead and continue to conquer and culturize the world. That was the tech of the day. Another thing that was the tech of the day was writing. It went from carving wood and carving stones into taking some form of like a feather and dipping it in some sort of ink and using papyrus or some sort of leaf to write on. That was a new technology of the day. And how did that change things? It meant that people could become writers and authors and those that would, write down stories. And usually a lot of it was, historical and things of that nature. So when we think about the past, we don't see that heroes of the old or our ancestors, if we know much about our specific ancestry, we don't see them like having to deal with technology. We see different innovations impacting their identity, but the way innovations impact our identity today is way more significant than before.
For sure.
There's another take on that. It's another perspective of what you're saying, like our ancestors didn't have to interact with thousands of people. They interacted with hundreds.
I think we were like tribes back then. It was just a smaller. We were super cultural in our own tribes, and the tribes consisted of what maximum 10 families, and those families could have even been cousins and related.
So it wasn't monolithic, it's shifted over time, and it was. But the point I want to shift, the point I wanted to bring out there's a limitation. A human being can really only have, I think it's 1 to 200 relationships that you meaningfully interact with. So now we can communicate to thousands. Like we could have hundreds of thousands of people watching these live streams. But even if we're someone who's super famous, even if we're President Trump, we still don't have the brain capacity as a human being. There's only 24 hours in a day, and your brain is only so big. You still have a limited number of relationships. Like one example of this, like there's a science in church planning, and it's called the 200 member peak. So a church can grow to about 200, maybe 250. It's hard to sustain it beyond that on the charisma of one pastor who's a good pastor and connects with people and, is committed to that. But for it to go beyond 200, to break through, he has to put in place a system and a team that people have that identity with the congregation without a real relationship with him. So that's a big shift, and it's hard, and that's why most churches are under 200.
If you look at Santa Cruz County as an example, I'll just mention two pastors that I really appreciate and have a nice relationship with both of them. You have someone like Dave Campbell at Calvary Chapel, Capitola. He comes in here. He's on the radio, I think, on a monthly basis. He's probably on the radio 2 or more times a month with Dave for the drive time deal. And, Dave Campbell, I've told Dave privately and publicly, he's one of the safest pastors I've ever met in my life because he's not overly charismatic. He doesn't usually operate in extremes. He's not prone to be extreme in his expression of what he finds in the sacred scriptures, nor is he prone to be extreme in his perspective politically. He doesn't really operate in those intense things, and he doesn't rile up his friends or his congregation, whether in small one-on-one conversations or small groups or his larger congregation. He doesn't rile people up. So to me, he's a safe community leader or pastor in that regard. And I've told him that. But he is an example of someone that, he's a vocational, minister. That's how he lives and makes a living. And of course he has other people around him that help augment that. But he has a nice community of, let's say, a couple hundred people, just like what you're saying, Ted. If you take and look at someone like Renee at Twin Lakes Church, that church had, I believe, 10,000 people almost that went there on Christmas. So let's say on average, there's a few thousand people there. So Renee obviously is not interacting with a few thousand people. Renee has a team that has been on his team for decades, full-time people that are focused on administration or focused on music or focused on kids or focused on the maintenance of the place. And then he has teams doing things that are outside of just ministry. Basically, their team have spun up the Hope Center, which is like a augmented, collaborative thing for the community, like Sepkin Harvest Food Bank. And, Renee's the one that is in, Good Times as one of the top 50 people in our county that's made an impact on Santa Cruz. But it's not about Renee. And he very clearly says, hey, I'm just one of the people here. And so Renee's an example of someone with a lot of charisma that could easily make it all about himself because he's so good at talking and so good at capturing people's hearts. But he's really delegated a lot of the actions of leadership to other people. And he has this massive building, and there's a long-term, large community that's been there and a school. And there's a lot of things going in that regard. So this is an example of two good men with the same heart and intention to lead communities. And one has a community that he's able to manage with his team around him. That's a small property and a smaller community, which a lot of people find a lot of value in that. And another one has a massive property with a massive amount of responsibility. And he's had to delegate everything he possibly can in order to maintain that. And, sometimes I wonder how an identity change is required to go from a community of 1-200 to break out into a community of 500 or 5,000, because it does require someone to kind of change the way that they think about their responsibility or their identity. And I think we do face these things in our life where we are going down one single path. Let's say you're a carpenter. I'm a carpenter. I build homes. I throw nails in wood, and I work for a general contractor, and I build homes. But then if you want to become a general contractor and you want to oversee carpenters, electricians, plumbers, roofers, you have to change your identity, who you are and what you do. How have you guys found your identity be transformed during different periods of time? Maybe something that's tied to your career, whether technology was involved or not.
It's interesting that you bring this up because I was talking about this earlier this morning. The first time I had to build a team, a technology team, I was very intentional about this one thing that allowed it to continue. Anyone new who came into the team had to be vetted by everyone that was already on the team. That was the entrance. It wasn't just come one, come all, come everybody, because it was too jarring and disruptive, especially when you have a cohesive group. You know, and it doesn't mean you don't have it wasn't. There were people I was cool with, wouldn't fit on my team at all. You know, and that was an interesting dynamic. And some of them got upset. Why don't you want me on my team? I was like, it's not a good fit. It's not a good fit. And I think that when you case in point, as I've gotten older and gotten more into my faith, just by call it attrition, however you want to call it. I only find myself around other people of faith. It doesn't feel intentional, but it kind of is. But that's just by the example. Like what it is. If I don't feel comfortable talking about my faith, I have to talk about it. But if it comes up, then it's gonna be. It's not going to be the right fit. Typically. So something like that.
We are in so many ways who we are or have the identity that we claim to possess because of the people around us. I mean, we are kind of a product of the life that we've lived. And to some extent, I think it's completely fair and more of a theological perspective to say, well, we actually decide who we want to be ourselves. We are each unique humans. But then that's also something that's really hard to prove, really hard to even explain, because you don't have any example of someone who's just up by themselves their whole life that doesn't have a life that's built them. We're all built by our life. And so identity is so closely tied to who we spend time around. And so over time, you both see that you find people who you tend to be more like, and you just tend to be more like the people you do spend time around. That's such an interesting concept about humanity and identity.
And we'll be back again in just a moment with more conversation on how does innovation and technology make an impact on our identity. Hello, Internet. It's good to be with all of you. If there was an echo, sorry, I think I may have had the mic on Nigel and Ted on StreamYard as well as the radio. So that should be fixed now. So, identity is a very interesting concept, everybody. And I think it will be fun to dive in. I wanted to try something when we weren't on the air on the radio. So let me try it when it's just with all of our internet friends. So here we go. I'm going to talk with ChatGPT and Grok. Here we go.
Thank you.
Hey, ChatGPT, I am wondering how you would define the word identity.
The word identity. It's a pretty rich and layered concept. At its core, I'd say identity is basically who you are. The combination of characteristics, beliefs, values, experiences, and maybe even roles that make you Well, you. It's that sense of self that can be both personal, how you see yourself, and social, how the world sees you. So it's a bit like your internal blueprint mixed with the story you share with others.
Mixed with the story you share with others. That reminds me a lot of how much we interact with people through social media today because we're choosing the story that we're sharing with others. Let me ask you this question, ChatGPT. Here's the question. What impact do you believe innovation and technology are making on the identity of people that have access to the internet now in 2025?
Oh, absolutely. Social media and all the tech we use are like these little mirrors and megaphones for our identity, right? In 2025, I think tech is really amplifying how we shape and present who we are. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, though, because on one hand, you have all these tools to express yourself, connect with like-minded communities, and kind of craft the narrative you want to share. On the other hand, there's a lot of noise and sometimes pressure to fit certain molds or keep up certain appearances. So in terms of impact, I'd say innovation in tech are making identity more fluid and customizable. People can reinvent themselves online in ways that maybe weren't as accessible before. And it's not just about social media. It's about all these digital spaces where you can kind of shape your digital footprint, whether that's through Web3 identities, avatars, or just the way you interact with AI. But at the end of the day, I think it's still about authenticity and making sure that tech is a tool for expressing your true self rather than overshadowing it.
If you had to give advice to people in America, people that are in a developed nation, it's often called the first world, but it's really 1/3 of the world is developed nations. But if you had to give advice to an American, and they have access to the internet, obviously technology innovation are making an impact on their identity day in, day out. What's one piece of advice for them to have a healthy engagement with technology and how it can maybe help them understand themselves better, more self-awareness? And please keep your answers short.
Absolutely. I can keep it short and sweet. My main piece of advice will be this: use technology intentionally rather than passively. In other words, be mindful about how and why you're using your devices. Set some boundaries, take breaks, and use the internet to explore things that genuinely reflect your interests and values. That way, you're using tech as a mirror for self-discovery rather than just letting it dictate your identity.
Thank you, ChatGPT. Talk to you later. Bye. Okay, everybody, we're about ready to go live again on the radio in 12 seconds. I thought that was pretty interesting. I imagine that many of you thought so as well. Internet, give us one moment as we rally up for our friends here at the radio. Welcome back to Beachside Tech Talk. My name is Ian Utilli, and today we are talking about what impact does technology and innovation make on our identity? It does seem like a really important question for us to consider. Is social media impacting our identity, our self-awareness, our belief about ourselves, the way that we present ourselves to others in a positive way? Does AI make it positive, negative, or both impacts? How are we going to think about ourselves when robots are not just, a thing on the internet, but they're a thing right in front of us? So when you think about all the changes happening to our identity and the impact that technology makes, Son, what are your thoughts as we enter our second segment?
Social media, AI, it's something that is so drastically affecting our lives today. I mean, right now, my mind is kind of wanting to wander back in the past, trying to put myself in the shoes of, I don't know, let's say Greek citizen, maybe even a philosopher, someone who knows a lot. Now, their version of the things that are of the day that are crazy and whoa are like still amazing when you think about it. But yet it's become things that are so common in our world, so frequent that we see them. Things like the roads or the really fancy buildings or being able to have their special concrete. Like, it's insane that it fixes itself. Genuinely, concrete will fix itself. It's like, wow, that's an amazing invention. And they have it before we even knew it existed. And it's those things that are like so influential when you put yourself in their shoes. But then I have the thought of like, I wonder what their quote unquote like sci-fi movies were. Like right now, the things of our sci-fi world are like robots, iRobot. They are going to be able to be everywhere and they do everything for us. Or any of the movies that talk about AI. Or you could even go into the Matrix type things that are on a massive scale. Now, those things, in a sense, don't look as far as they used to. I mean, flying cars are probably going to be something that actually could exist within the next decade because there's air and we have the technology.
Tunnels under the ground are safer, son.
That's also true, though. But it's just
Says
the
Elon
fact,
Musk with the Boring Company.
it's just the fact that technology is just so rapid. Like it's really happening now. And it just makes me think, I wonder what their version of a sci-fi movie was. I wonder if it was, you're going to have the biggest ships in the world. This massive being comes out of the fog on the ocean, and all of a sudden a war starts. But they have cannons before they're even like. That's just me ranting, but that's like the kind of thing that I'd imagine they'd come up with. But yet now we look back and we're like, dude, cannons were like 1,000 years ago. What are you talking about? And now that's something that's so far in the past. And so I wonder what people are going to say 1,000, maybe even just 100 years from now about this present moment. This moment where two amazingly influential technologies are happening at the same time, Web3 and AI. We're lucky that they're happening at the same time because it avoids deepfakes. But I just think it's going to be very interesting to see what people think in the future about now.
Go ahead, Nigel.
I think our identity is being shaped by technology in a way that we're not focusing on skills that might be valuable should we get into an apocalypse. And that's not to be all doom and gloom, but the point is tangible, useful skills are being automated or AI'd away. And when I say that, I don't mean like it's necessarily a bad thing. I just think certain skills we should have. Because in the event of loss of power, AI goes, case may be, doing without doesn't seem like a great option.
You asked the question, Nigel. Can we really reinvent ourselves as through online identity? And I think it's a question for us to think about. Riza, what do you think about a human's ability to reinvent themselves through an online identity? Where you're from in the Philippines, it's the number one usage of cell phones in the world, the number one usage of social media in the world. It's an average of 11.6 hours per day, 7 days a week that Filipinos use their cell phones.
I mean, that's so impressive.
Obviously, their online identity is quite vital because it's a large portion of their life. So, honey, what is your thought on a person reinventing themselves?
You mean reinventing, like
changing the perspective that people have of them? You know, for instance, when you became my wife, your name changed, your last name changed. That was your choice to take our last name. So in a sense, it's like a small little reinvention of yourself. You went from, your prior name to now your married name. So that's like a small little reinvent. And so you go on social media and now your name changes. So that's like an example of reinventing yourself, or it wasn't that long ago that you were doing fitness competitions and you were competing, and so that was a big part of your identity. And now you're deep and you're an influencer and you're a speaker in the Web3 AI space. And so when you think about reinventing yourself, do you think that we can reinvent ourselves through online identity? Do you think it's real? Do you think it's just what we present? What are your thoughts on it? Because you've seen it in your culture. It's permeated your culture because of how much people spend time on their phones and social media.
Yeah. In the Philippines, it's very common that people are reinventing themselves online. Like, it's really hard to trust people whether they're really using their real name or not, or whether really they're presenting themselves who they are. Like, I have met a lot of people saying that they are Christians. They even put like Bible verses in their profile, and to find out that they're not really who they are, because they're like, they're not their goal, but they want to scam people, and they need to do that because they want people to trust them, and they believe that Filipinos can easily trust people who are religious, who are Christians, something like that. So for me, identity, social identity in social media, all right, or online, can raise questions of authenticity, humanity, and equality. So authenticity is really a very challenging part, especially in the Philippines. So yeah, my daughter is not using her real name on social media, for reasons that she is a law student, all right, and she doesn't want to be bashed by people there. If ever she will, express her thoughts about specific things, so it's better to use a different name, use do not use her own photo, like just use avatar or something like that.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Mhm.
But I mean, isn't it like admitting or not admitting? It's just you. So you're using a pseudo of yourself, and what you are saying is true or maybe not true. Could be, either or. So, and then is that your identity? The descriptor or the definition that Malachi read, I don't see anything in there that being relatable to the description of identity. But I do understand the point of why someone would do that, to avoid being bashed. We've been doing philosophical sections here, and now we're going to start getting into, this digital identity, and we're going to find out. That's right. We can talk about it all day long, and these are our thoughts, and kind of it's a guesswork. We're gonna figure out this digital identity, but it's interesting to see Riza bringing up the point of people are using pseudo identities because, and that seems to be very popular, not only in real world, but how about metaverse? How about in a virtual and an augmented reality world? It's a place where people and a younger generation is really liking the idea of to go to.
Yeah.
You can make yourself whoever you want to be.
I remember, I helped launch NFT NYC in 2019. And as many people know, NFTs kind of took over the media. It was the word of the year, 2022, I believe. And it's digital assets. It's basically, imagine a painting or a lithograph, but it's digital. Or imagine a receipt with rights. Imagine a membership program, your Costco card or your country club membership, but it's a digital thing that instead of you buying it and you move and you can't use it, you can transfer it to somebody else. And so it's an inevitable technology. And we were very, very early, 2019, February, we launched the event. By 21, 2.5 years later, everyone at our event all had pseudonyms. Okay, 95% of people at our event had pseudonyms and had a cartoon image as their picture. A CryptoPunk, a Bored Ape, a Pudgy Penguin, whatever. And I just remember thinking, this is not going to last. These people are not going to keep a cartoon picture and a fake name. This is a very short-term thing. Now, I understand that 10 or 20% of them will, because those are the people that never wanted to be known by their identity in the first place. They want anonymity. But a lot of the professionals that were known by Susie or Sam, and they were the VP of this or the founder of that, and they always used a normal headshot, and now all of a sudden they're some Octopus 4 and Monkey 42, and they got some sort of image of themselves. And I remember being there, and I've always done our closing keynotes. I've always been an MC at our events, and I work a lot with the speakers. And I would get people like questioning me, like, why are you still Ian Utility with a picture of yourself? Like, get with it, dude. Don't you have a CryptoPunk or a Bored Ape or a Pudgy Penguin that you can put on? Like, get with the movement, man. This is the future. And I'd say we'll see how it plays out. I'm assuming that you're going to go back to your picture and your name before I go and I change it. And I've been online now for 20 years. And I was one of the first on Facebook. You know, I was huge on MySpace. I was one of the first on a lot of different platforms. One of the first on LinkedIn. I've always used my name. I've always used my picture. I've never had a false identity. And the other thing I'll say about this identity and pseudonyms is there's two people that are super, super famous. One is, it was, I believe, Beyonce, and the other was Jared Leto. So about 10 years ago, they both created a mean personality of themselves on X so that they could rip into people and kind of be a troll. And so they basically created these like troll accounts. So Jared had his, Beyonce had hers, and they had fun with it for a few months. But that didn't last. Guess what Beyonce and Jared don't do anymore? Post on those. Guess what they didn't pour themselves into? Their false, fake identity. Why? Because they're famous for who they presented themselves to be as Beyonce and Jared Leto.
Not a false.
Yeah. And so they're obviously going to go back to where the energy's at. They're going to go back to where the followers are at. They're going to go back to where they once, expressed like, hey, this is who I am. I'm Jared Leto. I'm an actor. I'm a musician. I'm Beyonce. I'm a musician, right? I'm a performer. And so they go back to that, even though they had fun playing around with the side thing. I do think that a lot of times people, have this, the grass is greener on the other side. So it's like, well, if only I could start over again. If only I could go by my middle name. My middle name is Matthew. So I think to myself, you know what? I'm going to go by Matthew. I'm going to create a brand new identity called Matthew. And that'll be better. Then I can start fresh. Then I get to start a brand new network. I get to start over with my identity from scratch. Well, oftentimes if the grass seems greener on the other side, you might want to build a bigger fence, because the energy that you're going to put toward creating a new identity is probably not going to be what you think it is. It's probably going to be a lot harder. The result is probably not going to be as good as you hope it will be. It probably won't be what it could. And you could have instead invested into just honing who you actually are, right? Presenting yourself in a way that is hopefully honest, true, authentic, but allows you to build on that foundation you already have in place. So no strong recommendation. I'm not giving some sort of strong recommendation of what is or isn't right. This is not a moral conversation in any regards, or an integrity conversation in any regards. It's just something I've observed. I've observed a lot of people abandon their existing birth given name, photograph of themselves for a false identity or having a side identity, only to go back and be like, I think I'm going to go back and try to capture the essence of who I am or who I was presenting myself to be initially. Nigel, what are your thoughts on the stuff that I'm sharing right now?
I think live streaming kind of balances that, because you show up online and it's like, wait a minute, you're not a penguin. You're an actual person, And then I think about who you are in real life. Because at the end of the day, social. And I mean, people make a lot of money. There's a lot of commerce going on. Fantastic. All that's million followers. You don't know those people.
Yeah.
And they got a little snippet, in a story or a reel, or so, like, whether you had, like, you didn't see a picture of me ever for a while.
You were the gratitude champion.
We were on Clubhouse for a long time with the same image you see there.
Yep.
And talking and doing things, and then we met in real life. And if there's something you need me to see, you just message me, because we're connected. And that's the difference between a follower and someone you're connected to.
Yeah.
It's really, to me, that simple. Because if I needed you for something, I would just message you directly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to your social media to find out about you, to see how you're doing. I'm just not doing that. Because in real life, I could just, hey, how's it going?
Mm-hmm. It is weird how the whole dynamic on social media has been something of there's not really responsibility. You can just say whatever you want. Like, it is kind of weird that Beyonce and the other guy decided to make a troll account instead of make "You're Awesome" account because it's so much easier.
Well,
and
I wouldn't
so much
say
more
I wouldn't say I
motivating.
really leaned into those two accounts. I wouldn't consider myself an expert. They might have thought of it differently than I. But
they might have had it suggested to them by a team of their
I imagine their
PR
agent said, "Hey,
their
this is a
PR
great
people.
idea.
Yeah,
Right.
let's try this. It'll really work. It's the new thing. It's where people are going, and they're like, oh, okay,
Mhm.
hope so.
What I'm trying to say is that I think that's kind of short term. I think it's going to last in some sections of the way people interact online. But I think there's going to be more and more, especially as we're able to have more senses that come out from these. Like, look at the headsets. That's like full interaction. And then you're probably going to start having things similar to holograms, or maybe the robot that's in your house is able to just do the message instead of just say it, or instead of just watch it. It just acts out the message that your grandma just sent you. Like, that's something that makes it so the emotion is more felt instead of it just being alphabet letters that some dude in ancient Greece came up with.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's going to be something that conveys the emotion people feel much more in the future, and that therefore will convey the identity a lot more.
How about your driver, your identity through your DMV? They have now a
real ID,
a forever ID that has a hologram backed off by it and things like that. So that's a digital place that is, they're entering into a digital world where we are identifying there with ourselves. There's all kinds of DIDs, digital identifiers, and then what is there? Self-sovereign identifiers. So that's where people are working in Web3 as like a job for them. And since they work in that environment all the time, they are digitizing their IDs through crypto wallets and things like that. And creating they own their identity. Which is a unique aspect to kind of think of how you're presenting yourself with an identity digitally. So
our friend Web350, who we spent time with at the Coinbase event recently, he wrote in the comments yesterday, the group, being us, we are the group, everybody, spoke about the response to others' success. He said, I recently heard someone say money does not change people, it amplifies them. Accepting that as at least somewhat true or not, would reinventing ourselves or becoming quote unquote successful really be more of an application of some existing part of us? Hence the greedy getting greedier, the loving being more loving, happiness being external to digital identity, attention, and money. And I think that this is a common understanding that we often amplify who we are. We will be back in about 10 minutes, radio. We're here at 1340 AM, KOMY, and Homo Schoolhouse Radio will be back again in just a moment after these advertisements. All right, Internet. Well, we have about a 10-minute break. So I'm actually going to play a video and give the team a chance to get some water and whatever they got to do. The video I'm going to play is called What Type of Futurist Are You? Okay, now this was a video. I did the closing keynote at an event. The first minute and a half is a little bit rough. Guy from Pink Floyd, the saxophone player, he was there. He had just finished up a performance. It was amazing. And I love Pink Floyd. I saw them live when they did a reunion tour back when I was like 18 years old. I've always really appreciated Pink Floyd's art. And so I thanked him in the beginning, as you'll see, and I couldn't get the one wheel to work right. So that was like a distraction. But I eventually got into it. And I talked about what type of futurist are you? And I was trying to get the audience to understand that if they could identify themselves in one of these two ways, the type of person that speaks about what will come based on data and prediction, and the type of person that speaks about what will come based on belief and desire, and how that can often lead to that being a reality. And I think that this is a meaningful little moment to share with you based on our conversation today. So hope you enjoy it, and I'll jump back on in 7 minutes to chit chat with all of you before we go back live on the radio. Wow, wow, wow. I was at the 25 anniversary in San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
And I just remember thinking, as I was young then, I remember thinking, this is art. Like, this is inspiration. And for 50 years, you and your friends have been inspiring generations. And you still are innovating today.
Love it.
Can we just once again thank Scott? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Let me just say one thing.
I can't tell you how thankful I am for this community. It's unbelievable. The Web3 community, the best part about it is we can collaborate, we work together. I feel 30 years younger hanging out in this crowd, and I'm really thankful to be part of this. So, go Web3! Yes,
All right. Okay. We're at the end. Well, my board, I'm going to give it one more try. We're at the end. I want to leave you with one thought for today. And I want to leave you with the thought of what type of futurist are you? Now, we'll see if this thing will work for me. It will. We'll see.
Let me get off stage.
I'm not feeling it. So no one wheel for now. What type of futurist are you? That's the question I have for you. Are you an artist that creates the future by casting a vision? Or are you a scientist that predicts the future by looking at data? Because humans, one thing that makes us different than all the animals in the world is that we think and communicate about the future. It might be the only thing that's different about us than every other mammal. We think, we talk about, we dwell on, we dream about, we sacrifice for, we invest into, we save for the future, for tomorrow, for 100 years from now. Kings and queens used to build castles that their children and grandchildren would never live in. Why? Because they had a vision for the future. And every single person in a seat right now, and anybody watching this recording, is a human and has a vision for a future. So there are two ways that you can think about the future. You can look at data, and you can say, scientifically, what's likely? And then I will, as a scientist, say, well, here's what the future is going to be like based off of critical thought of what's been and maybe what is. And then there are the artists, those that cast a vision, those that create what is not, those that speak for and say, this could be, and it happens because they say it could be. And so there are the artists and there are the scientists. So what type of futurist are you? Now, regardless if you're a scientist or an artist, you have to make a decision. I had the one wheel because I was going to go back and forth. It was going to be very exciting. You have to make a decision. Are you going to be critical or are you going to be optimistic? Now, it doesn't matter if you're a scientist or an artist. When you think of the future, when you talk about the future, when you dwell on the future, when you save for the future, when you invest into the future, when you sacrifice for the future, are you of the mindset of fear, anxiety, pessimism, and critical thinking? Do you wholeheartedly believe in dystopia? Or have you honed the muscle of your mind and your heart and your soul to believe in an anti-dystopic future? Have you made a decision as a scientist or an artist that the future can be great and that you could be a part of the greatness? Do you have an optimistic view, as Scott and his friends must have had over the decades, that they could keep going? They could keep creating new sound. What is music? It is
sound and the absence of it. That's what music is. It's the mixture of sound and the absence of it. And music is one of the art forms that moves our soul. Doesn't matter what language you speak. Doesn't matter what your age is, or what gender you are, or what ethnicity you are, or what geographic location you're from. Your socioeconomic background doesn't matter, but when it comes to music, it can move your soul. Just sound and the absence of it. If you're an artist or a scientist, do you have vision? Do you have something that is driving you forward that you're optimistic and hopeful about? Because it doesn't matter if you're predicting from data or if you are simply speaking forth what could be. There is so much dystopic media in the world, the Terminators, the Blade Runners, the Black Mirrors, that it is really easy to get into a rut of cynical thinking. And therefore, all of your data, you see the data from a dystopic point of view, and you talk about and you cast vision about how dangerous AI can be and how dangerous blockchain can be. Or are you making the decision? And this is it, I'm done. This is the final thing. I don't have a statement of what you should do. I'm simply asking you a question. And the question to dwell on is, what type of futurist are you? Because it doesn't matter if you're a scientist or an artist. What matters is, are you making a decision to have hope? It's been said that we can go weeks without food, a week without sleep, days without water. You can even go 10 minutes without air. But can a human survive without hope? But are you just redlining? Barely surviving, that hope gas tank is almost empty? Well, then find somebody here tonight that seems hopeful and get around them, right? We have a tendency to become like the people that we spend our time with. So spend your time with some hope-filled, optimistic scientists, with some passionate, visionary, life-giving artists, and may you, yourself, make a massive impact in the world as Scott and his friends at Pink Floyd have done. I will see all of you over the weekend. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Welcome back, Teddy. We missed you last segment, and it's good to see your beautiful face. You're on mute, Ted. You have to unmute yourself to be heard. There you go. We're going to go live in about 90 seconds. So it's been nice to have Web350 jump in and give some comments. If you're still with us right now, bro, it'd be actually fun to have you join us in the near future. We can line that up and have you jump in and be part of the conversation if that's of interest to you. We're going to transition into the next segment, the second hour. We're almost there. As I mentioned, we're about a minute away. And during the next break, last break I did for our internet World Wide Web audience, I talked to ChatGPT for a bit. So the next break, we'll have a similar conversation with Grok and see what Grok has to say. Oh, good. Web350 gave me a thumbs up. That means he's at least has some interest in jumping in and participating in the conversation with us. That'd be wonderful. So I'll reach out to you, bro, and we'll figure something out to find a good time for you. So we're about to dive back in. The conversation that we're having today is a big question. What impact does innovation and technology make on our identity? I think this is a vital conversation, because if we don't think about it, we can just go down the path of having our self-perception a certain way. And I think having an open dialogue, the six of us, and inviting others like Web350 to participate by leaving comments is important. So I'm going to get ready to say hello to the radio and welcome everybody back. And we'll get rocking and rolling in about 15 seconds. How many times have we watched a movie or a TV show and we've resonated with the character? And it's one reason why we love the shows and the movies that have the anti-hero, because aren't we all of us in some regard, we see ourselves as an anti-hero. Very few of us think of ourselves as a knight in shining armor, which knights in shining armor killed people, so they're not that great. Not many of us think of ourselves
blood-soaked shiny armor.
Not expecting that.
We don't often think of ourselves as some sort of righteous, holy one. I don't think any of us, not just the six of us here, but any of us listening would think of ourselves as a perfect person. I think all of us recognize the challenge, the complication of what it is to be a human. It reminds me of the TV show Breaking Bad. And there is the main character, Bryan Cranston's character. His wife, who was Skylar in this TV show, is on the bed. And she's like, do you realize what could happen to us? Do you know the danger you're putting our family into? Do you understand what it is to be a drug dealer? Like, what could happen to us? Our little baby, our son. Bryan Cranston's character turns around. You think you're in danger? I built a business that could be on the NASDAQ. I am the danger. I am the one who knocks. That moment on that TV show was such a powerful view of identity. See, the main character, his wife, looked at him and said, you're just a science teacher. You're just a man that's about to die from lung cancer. And you're putting our family in danger. What happens when the scary drug dealers knock on our door? She saw him a certain way, but he saw himself a different way. And he says to her, I'm the danger. I'm the one who knocks. And there's something about watching a show like that where we identify with the wife. Like, we identify with that sense of being helpless, like somebody around us, our parents, our kids, our boss, our employees, they are putting us in danger. What you're doing, and we see them a certain way, and we see ourselves a certain way. And then there's part of us that identifies with the man that stands up and says, I'm the danger. Because there's a part of us that knows that every human has an element of danger. And so, how do you manage your identity? And what is it that we think when we see these characters play out? There's a big difference between James Bond and Ethan Hunt. There's a massive difference between 007 and Mission Impossible. And the way that they interact, their motivations, what they do. But now there's this whole group of movies and TV shows and things that have been made over time. And we look at these stories and we identify. Maybe we identify with the main character. Maybe it's one of the comedic, people in it. Maybe it's the girl that's in it. That's, kind of the starlet of the show this time, or maybe it's the bad guy. But we identify with something, and we are constantly looking through media. What is going to help me understand myself better? What's going to help others understand me better? Every year when children dress up in costumes for Halloween, which is coming up pretty soon, everyone here in America are looking forward to Halloween in a month and a half, but not in the Philippines. Philippines, just so everybody knows, Christmas starts September 1st. They could care less about Halloween and Thanksgiving. They're just all about that Christmas life for 4 months. That's their identity. I think we're putting our Christmas tree up pretty soon. So
some of these identities that you're doing right now are identifiers.
They are. But the point is, I'm trying to stoke the conversation so that we can be mindful of how we look at things and connect ourselves
Right.
to it.
100%.
We look at things that technology provides,
It's easy
media,
to connect too.
and we go, "Oh, there I am."
Yep. I see
There
myself
I
right
am.
there. Yeah.
And so I think that it's important to recognize that never in the past were people given the number of mediums that were given to identify with. Now, I imagine our ancestors identified with biblical characters. They identified with the Odyssey. They identified with, different Shakespeare. They probably, they read stuff or they see a play and they go, there I am. That's me. Oh, there's my neighbor. That's them. Right. And so I think that we often see things, read things, hear things that make us feel like we're seen, or make us feel like, oh, well, that explains something else. So for the five of you, does any story come to mind that you've had access to because of the grace of technology and innovation, the innovation that Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Disney Plus, etc., has brought to us? Are there any stories that you've had access to that have really given you a stronger sense of understanding yourself or people around you? Anything come to mind for you guys?
My favorite stories are the comebacks.
Those are the best.
They are the best. Then, in my
they're
opinion,
so entertaining too.
You see the travel, and everyone can identify with and understand that struggle of just loss, or don't want to say failure, but not success at a point in time, but seeing the struggle that someone goes through and then coming through that fire and, being able to wear that shiny armor at the end is, great story, just a great story. And we identify that because that's what we feel about ourselves sometimes, whatever we go through, good or bad, we have the ups and downs in life, and we're constantly coming through because that's what we want. We want to be our own self-hero in our own story. Who wants to go see someone later on today, tomorrow, or another time you're going to talk to someone and they say, how you doing? You want to give them a good report. You want that good report. So we're always living the underdog, chasing after the fantastic dream of success and heroism.
Absolutely.
I mean, that just makes me think about how it's something like AI now. You can actually, if you really, really wanted to, you could take the entire Superman movie and change it so that you're Superman. Like, you can do that now.
That's why.
And the goal of that, whatever it is, in my opinion, I feel like it has something to do with, and you might not even realize it, but that subconscious layer of a filter that we put on, where we see everything and it goes through the filter that our life has created, and we see people that we identify with. Maybe you've always wanted to have the attention that Superman has, and so you do actually go all the way and make that happen. That's just one example, but we really do apply that layer of our personal filter relating to our life, to like everything.
Nigel, love to hear from you.
I think about faith in this moment a lot, and what people believe, or what they can be made to believe if they have a very supportive infrastructure. And then someone puts a battery in their back and they go, well, I probably could do that. And what some people don't see is exactly what happens. And Ian, I've seen you do this. Like, someone would say something to you about a person, and you would say something like, well, maybe. And I can tell in that moment, you see other possibilities. And I think it happens more frequently. I just happen to notice it. And I think about, like, the comeback story
The best.
is amazing. I think
It's our favorite.
The best.
It is.
but when there's value already there,
We're all doing one right now.
My whole life is a
Yeah,
comeback
It's
story.
just a huge
I don't know how I
comeback
get back
story.
into the valley so many times. I'm like, how the heck did I end up
I
back in
must
the
like
valley?
it here.
That came out in Elon Musk's biography about how he's psychologically in this comeback, crisis mode, and he would intentionally almost self-sabotage or sabotage his company so that then he could get into this mode I mean, and obviously he's leveraged it. I mean, it sounds pretty dysfunctional. He's leveraged it as a superpower, which is interesting.
But it's paid off in such huge dividends for him.
Huge dividends. But
Isn't that a weird phenomenon?
His gambles are, we don't understand them. I mean, it's hard to fathom.
Yeah,
gambling the way he has. Yeah, it's tough. I could see how that could make
And
someone
it's such an abstract way of gambling.
very manic and how you hold your head, living on a swivel. Wow.
I love what Nigel said too about you, Ian. That's one of the things that I've noticed is you will present a different perspective on someone, and open up the possibilities. And, if we can look at people, I mean, there's one about self-identity, but the identity and the niche we put other people in, and of course, like Danny said earlier, we always rate other people with a fine-tooth comb and put them down. And then we do the same thing and we give ourselves, every justification and we explain it away.
But we also,
if we can extend that grace,
we also do the opposite of that as well. There's
we
a lot
also do the opposite.
There's a lot of times where we give other people a tremendous amount of grace, where we think highly of them, we praise them, we exalt them, we celebrate them.
See, you're doing it right now. You're just shifting the perspective of what I said. Good job.
And it feels just
prime
as good.
Example. Ted just said something about that, and then Dad shifted the perspective.
There's been this fight for about half millennia. And the two parties that are having this fight on a global scale is God in control or are people in control? And so there's even groups that have a name. So those that would present that humans are in control of their own destiny, there is no sovereignty. The creator of all things gave humans 100% absolute free will. Those might be called Arminianists, if I got the term right. And then those that believe that we don't have any control. We're living out a story that's already been written. God's 100% sovereign, totally in control. The creator is the one that makes all the decisions. And we're just basically a chess piece on his board. He's moving us as he wills. He might make us think we have self-control, but we don't, or with free will, we don't. And those are often called Calvinists.
Can both exist at the same time?
So this is the reality. The human mind can't comprehend that we have complete autonomy, independent free will, and at the exact same time, the creator of all things is totally in control at the same time. Because in the human mind, that makes no sense. But again, we've created all these weird things for humanity, right? Time is a human construct. Money is just a faith medium so we can store and transact value. Money's not real, never has been, never will be. So we have all these things that we've created that we kind of live within our own little matrix that humanity's created. And so sometimes the big things like humans having sovereign, autonomous free will and a creator having, control and having a destiny for people to live out, that not both can be true. They're opposite. Only one can be true. And so this is oftentimes, Nigel, why I will say maybe, because one side is presented heads on the coin, and I'm like, well, what's tails? What's on the other side of that coin? Is there heads on both sides? Is there tails on both sides? I doubt it. It's probably has to do with perspective. And so oftentimes, if people can't explain something, so if we can't explain the complexity of our identity, if we can't explain the complexity of our life as we become more self-aware over time, and our life is very challenging to explain because we have the body of an animal and the mind of a god, and we do all kinds of weird things. We self-implode, we self-sabotage, we sacrifice our life for other people, we're generous. Like, these things don't make sense. We're totally selfish, we're totally selfless, right? We're both at the same time. And so we always want to kind of say, oh, no, I want to show the world how selfless I am, how giving and generous I am. I'm going to hide my selfishness. I'm going to hide my greed. Or some people are the opposite. And so oftentimes things are declared, and I do respond with maybe.
It's pretty.
It's called awareness.
Very descriptive. Also,
There's something I wanted to throw on the table. I've been thinking about as we've had this conversation. Is being more proactive about identity. You know, we think of discipline, self-discipline is a key to, you know, getting the outcomes you want, as opposed to just being a slob who's not in shape and doesn't succeed. I think what I've been learning is we that's not necessarily the right framework, because self-discipline as such, you know, like force of will, is not so easy to sustain. And that what we look at as disciplined people aren't necessarily people who have, you know, tons of self-will, as if they have just a super self-will muscle. But those who are able to create habits. So habits are one, you know, rituals, and it's creating the good habits, the healthy habits that you do. So as I was looking into this and trying to figure out, because I want to, you know, I want to stay in shape, and I want to be able to play basketball hard, and I want to work out. And it's always been a struggle for me to be consistent with that, you know, and I want to be consistent so that I can keep playing and be in great shape and be, you know, in my 50s now. One of the things I learned is the power of identity. Like identity, like if I'm the guy that doesn't eat sugar, if I've declared that, if that's part of my identity, when I'm tempted by that sugar, that identity is going to be one more bulwark to help me resist temptation. So like, I talk about working out and my cold plunges and fitness a lot. And I think sometimes I come across as like, you know, I'm bragging about it. Quite the opposite. I'm actually talking to the person because I'm passionate. And I like to, you know, particularly guys in their 50s, I like to encourage them to think differently, to get in shape, to realize, you know, the science of longevity, and we can realistically expect to live vibrant lives into our hundreds. I'm excited about that. But the other side is I'm holding myself accountable, because if I'm the guy who is an athlete, if I'm the guy, and that's part of my identity, my internal identity, that I'm the guy who plays basketball competitively in my 50s, you know, if I'm the guy that's still good, if I'm the guy who does cold plunges, then when it's cold at night and I'm tired and I don't feel like going home, I'm like, oh man, but I'm the guy who does this. And just this little trick and being intentional about using identity to create rituals and habits. Anyways, that's been helping me. And I have been consistent, at least in this one area, in a way I never have, even when I was playing professionally.
Our self-identity just matters so much. That's a really beautiful point you just pointed out, Ted. Like, that is something that it feels so core to the way that we operate as humans. Like when you said the sugar thing, I felt like that kind of resonated with me as well. Kind of like, no, I want to be the person who does this or who does that. And it's something that feels so hard in the moment. But then all of a sudden, you look 2 weeks in the future, not really that far, and you've done something only like 4 times, like twice a week. And now you realize internally you believe that you're that kind of person. And then you don't even realize you just did it again. You don't even realize that's the person you've become. And it's a beautiful point and such a core part of humanity that makes us amazing.
And another connection around with that, identity and then community. Another thing is like, if you have a community, like if you're part of a community that all play basketball or all work out, okay, that's tied in with your identity and the community holds you accountable. All those things. There was like 5 things. I think it was chat. Okay, here, this is tech. I think it was ChatGPT that I was like, how do you create better habits? How do you be more disciplined? Might have been a book or whatever. And it gave me 5 things. I can't remember all of them, but one of them was identity. The other was community. The other is like self-commitments, you know, like you commit to yourself, things like that.
I hear you say that, and I think about the 3 pillars that I think are important in success. belief, commitment, and support. And the support is the one that really resonates. Sometimes you hear someone talking about something a lot and they're self-coaching. They're not aggrandizing themselves. They're just self-talking.
Mm.
Just like similarly, when you have great support around you and someone says, dude, you could do better than that. Like, I'm not even going to listen to you, or I'm going to be mad at you right now if you don't take care of this because you're capable. I think we underestimate how important that support is. The feeling you get, you go out there and you're playing and, you're out there with 30-year-olds or 25-year-olds, Ted, and you dropping them, posting up, and they're like, all right, I see you. So you go home and you feel good. You're like, I better do more of that. That felt pretty good. And there you go.
Beautifully well said. Thank you, Ted, for bringing that up. It's such a beautiful part of humanity.
We have about 3 minutes before we go to break, and I don't want to talk about this point too long because, it's been hard on us, and I imagine our listeners have also dealt with some hardship in this regard. But I just want to touch on it. Many of us have had loved ones lose their identity because they lose, the mind deteriorates as you get older. So I know for Dan and I, our grandma, who we love dearly, and toward the last few years of her life, she had a tough time remembering who we were, remembering who her daughter, our mom, was, and that's always a very interesting thing to see. There was a movie recently with Alec Baldwin and another famous actress. She did a great job in this film, and basically she was a doctor, really smart, couple daughters, and she lost her mind. Her mind deteriorated, and just watching it play out. Michael Keaton did a recent movie. He's a hitman, and he loses his mind, and he's like trying to do one last good thing for his son before it's too late. And we see these things play out, and we reflect upon ourselves like, wow, my parent, my grandparent, my uncle, my auntie, my neighbor, they were this incredible thing. They had this identity, and now they don't remember who they are. They don't remember who their family is.
Nothing. They can't identify.
Yeah.
That is a sort of a bummer on the subject of identity.
Right.
Basically, what happens if you lose it?
Yeah.
Even more so to the point, what happens if you lose it slowly? Case in point, like maybe a guy like Robin Williams. That thing that started happening to him. See, I can sort of understand why someone might question the longevity factor of sticking around as you're, slowly starting to literally lose your identity. You're forgetting things. You don't remember who you are. And just as you're saying, to lots of people have had family members who've experienced this as we age. And we don't know how to deal with that.
No doubt.
It's something that you deal with internally for yourself. I think most of us do the best we can, and we try to, like in Grandma's case, you just love her and continue to love her, remind her, and that's that. That's our job, our position. So,
something to leave it off on a good note. Honestly, I've seen plenty of things recently about how dementia,
lots of medicine,
arthritis, a lot of those, they're finding ways to start the process of getting rid of it. So thank you for your attention. This is Cam War. We'll see you later.
Be back.
What's for dinner tonight?
All right, everybody. Internet, we have about 4 minutes. I wanted to test out a thing. We had used Chat GPT previously, and now I would like to try out something similar on Grok. So here we go. Let's give this a shot and see how this goes.
Do you have a subscription for both?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. So
because I just wanted to ask. So if you get something that's absolutely incredible right now,
right,
results may vary.
But I turned off the personalization.
That's cool.
So that would be more. I also turned off the NSFW.
No naughty naughties?
Yeah, because, dude, Grok will get crazy sometimes.
It'll send you back some naughty.
It definitely is not safe for radio all the time. That's for sure.
Yeah.
NSFR, not safe for radio.
X's in there? What's that W for?
Work, not safe for work. Okay, here we go. Let's give this a try and see what comes. I'm not connected to the internet. 1 second.
NSFW is out here just trying.
Yeah. Not safe for work. Okay, here we go. Let's give this a shot. Hi, Grok. I am doing a radio show, and the question we're answering today is, what impact does innovation and technology make on our identity? My question for you is, can you define identity for us?
Hey, identity is basically who you feel you are at your core. Your sense of self, shaped by experiences, values, relationships, and yeah, even tech. It's like your personal fingerprint, unique but fluid. So, for your show, how do you think tech innovations like AI or social media mess with that sense of self?
I'd like you to answer that question for us. How do you observe that innovation and technology is making a positive and negative impact on the identity of people? So I want 2 answers for that. How do you see it making a negative impact, and how do you see it making a positive impact on people's identity?
On the flip side, tech innovation can mess with identity in rough ways. Social media algorithms push idealized images, making folks feel like they're never enough, leading to anxiety or warped self-worth. Constant online comparison can make you chase a fake persona, losing touch with who you really are. Also, AI like deepfakes can blur what's real, making it hard to trust even your own experiences or memories. How do you think these negative impacts hit your listeners? On the positive side, tech opens doors to self-discovery. Online communities let you connect with people who share your unique traits, like niche hobbies or identities, helping you feel seen and valued. Tech like VR can let you explore new perspectives, like different cultures, expanding who you think you are. Even AI tools can boost creativity, letting you express yourself in ways you never imagined. What's a positive tech impact you've noticed in your own life?
Grok, thanks for jumping in and sharing with us. I'll talk with you later. So, I just showed a quick audible conversation with Grok. Malachi and I have had times where we'll talk to Grok or ChatGPT for up to an hour. Basically, you can have an hour-long conversation. He's always asking me, Dad, can we talk to the AI? And I say, on the radio. Okay, we're about ready to start, Ted. You'll have to keep your whatever it is you want to say. Let's share it with the party people on the radio. Let's go. We're live in 5 seconds. Welcome back to 1340 AM KOMY, the home of Schoolhouse Radio here in Santa Cruz County. My name is Ian Utilli. This is Beachside Tech Talk live. We're also live on all the social media sites. If you're interested, Instagram, X, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. We are rocking and rolling there as well. The conversation we're having today is, what impact does innovation and technology make on our identity? Riza, you did not jump in and say anything last segment, so let me turn to you. Any thoughts on identity and the impact that technology makes, either for you personally or for people around you, or just what you observe about the world?
The technology, the impact is really great because through technology, it reshapes who we are. And like what I have shared earlier, using the social media, it actually help us, not only help us, but it reinvented our identity. And and a lot more. Me as an online teacher, my identity actually before was not who I was. It's because of how international students would accept me as an English teacher.
Yeah.
So I have to change my identity, but I did my very best to show them that I am really capable and a good teacher, which I did it for over 20 years.
One thing that I've talked about with you and some of our team members for our company, Attention Live and Web3 AI in the Philippines, is that Filipinos, if they are known as being a Filipino living in the Philippines, they often feel like the opportunities that they're given are minimized. For instance, if somebody was looking to hire someone to do a skill, and that person lives in California, New York, they might get offered 10 times more money for the exact same job. But because somebody's in Manila and people in the Philippines that work remotely are known for being affordable, they get 10% of the offer. And obviously there's a tension there. And you just mentioned that when you've been a business English teacher for over 20 years, and you've taught executives primarily, business English in 35 countries, and that if people knew that you were a Filipino living in the Philippines, there would be less of an appetite to pay your rate. But if they think that you are a Filipino that's in America, then they think, oh, well, that she's in America, and so that perception of identity has made an impact. Is there anything else that you'd like to give insight into terms of what I was just sharing?
Yeah, there was a company that I worked for, which is a French company, and I honestly told the owner or the employer that I'm a Filipino, and he couldn't believe that I'm a Filipino because how I talk and my teaching skills is way better than, I'm sorry to say this, than Americans. All right. And I am a certified TEFL teacher, which is teaching English to teaching English as foreign language. So he hired me, and in one condition, he said, I really don't want to give you $5 per hour, which is $5 per hour is actually good for Filipinos. He said, you deserve to receive $25 per hour. That was 2005, I think. So during that time, it's actually a big amount of money for a Filipino. And so he said, you're not going to turn on your camera. You have to speak with an American accent, and you have to change your name. You have to change your your location. You will tell them that you're in America, and I will advertise you. So I will help you. So in just a week, I got like over 100 students, and I work for over 8 hours per day. And that's how I earn a lot of money during that time. And yeah, so that's actually how I changed. But I felt a little bit uncomfortable. Every time Filipinos are asking me, how come you are earning that amount of money? And they're like, couldn't believe how I afford, the things that I have, like buying a car, buying a house. I was a single mom during that time with 2 children. So yeah, they couldn't believe that's why then when they applied, they couldn't believe, like, how come we are only receiving $2, $3 per hour, and you are receiving that amount of money? So yeah, that's you're right. Many companies, international companies, they actually don't see Filipinos before. That was a long time ago, before that we Filipinos are also capable to teach English, and because our second official language is English. But nowadays, it's very easy for us to tell them that we are Filipinos. It's because Filipinos now are acceptable in different international companies. And in fact, there are many employers hiring Filipinos like VA because they are knowledgeable and they have good skills. But the fact that they're their rate is until now is still lower than native people or Americans.
Isn't that kind of weird? Because we, in a sense, I'd say you're kind of better at English than me. I'm not even gonna lie,
Well,
because
she's taught it for over 2
because you've
decades.
both taught it, but also because knowing 2 languages teaches you just internally, without even really knowing it subconsciously, how to teach a language. Because you know 2, you already know how to jump back and forth. There, now you already know how to jump back and forth. That's one of the hardest parts of teaching a language to someone when they're trying to talk to you in their native language.
Yeah.
And then plenty of other things. And also, it pushes you way harder. You realize that, oh, they trust me. They're giving me way more than most people get. That means I have to work really hard. And then you do. And that's quite an amazing thing. And I feel like it's easy to discredit certain demographics with whatever that is. And once we realize that we're all just humans and intelligence is a human thing, not a geographic thing, then our mindsets are able to change.
Ted raises. So
yeah, I think
we should call on Ted, because
Ted,
Ted thinks he's in.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt if you don't call on me, so you better call me. No, that's the coolest story. I love it, and I agree with what Malachi just said. We've never had to learn English. It taught, we learned it as natively, so we didn't have to go through the process of learning it as an adult, and you did. So yeah, you'd have a skill that we don't. I think that's super cool. It reminded me, talking about identity. This came out, I learned this out of Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, where he talks about subconscious mind and the way we intuitively make decisions, and how that's our superpower, but also our weakness, depending on prejudice we have. And one of the examples he used is, musicians, like we're talking musicians who are world-class musicians in the orchestra or conductors or they know music so well, and within hearing someone, like within 30 seconds or less, they can tell how good a performer that person is. And they're generally spot on, because they just know the music so well and their ears are so in tuned, and they're just intuitive sense, and he goes into all the science of that intuition. But he also showed how it broke down. And one of the coolest things that one of the stories that spoke so much, and Riza's story reminded me of that. They instituted in, I think it was the LA Philharmonic, they instituted blind auditions. And so now, instead of seeing the musician perform, they would just hear him. And this person came out and performed a blind audition on the French horn, and immediately they all knew this person was extraordinary and very, very good. And they hands down won the position in first chair on the French horn. Their jaws dropped when this person walked behind the veil, and they saw her because she was a small Asian woman. And the prejudice, the mindset that a French horn, requires lots of lung power. So it has to be generally a male is better, and a big male, are the ones who are best at the French horn. And this woman broke the stereotypes because she was small and she was Asian. But what shocked them even more is she had been performing in the orchestra for like 2 years. They all knew her. But because of an identity, it had short-circuited their brains, and they could not hear. They never heard how well she was until they shut off that portion of their brain, and then they could hear it for what it is, and then immediately it just clicked in. So it's so interesting about identity and how our superpower becomes our kryptonite, And I love that story about Riza. There's this very, very skilled teacher, but had to get rid of the prejudice. And as soon as you got rid of the prejudice, you sold your value. And then, of course, there's pushback, but now you're one of the front runners raising the value of Filipino English teachers. That's super cool.
Good job, Riza.
Thank you.
You've done so much in a way for all the people who want to teach, whether it's English or something else.
Yeah.
It's got to be interesting for you to have to change your accent. Did you sound like what kind of American did you sound like?
When I was teaching English, I have used two different accents. So it depends on what a student actually want to learn. So if the student want to learn like an Australian accent, I can actually do that. So
Wow.
I just tried to,
I
learn
want to
how.
hear the Australian accent. Lisa as an
I'm no
Australian.
longer doing that. I think I forgot it. And so I also learned their vocabulary words because they have their own expressions and vocabulary words that only Australians understand, not Americans. So yeah, I learned a lot of that because for me to get more students. And yeah, I'm saying this because, to be honest, there are really many Filipino teachers, English teachers, that are really, really way better than me. I can say that. They are really, really good. Unfortunately, every time I ask how much do they, how much is their rate, I feel sad to them. And then every time I tell them you can apply in this website, and then they will come back to me and they will say, oh, they didn't, approve my application. And they will say that it's because I'm not a native speaker. So that's only so sad. And most Filipino English teachers are actually certified, and they have bachelor's degrees. So they are really, they are well educated when it comes to teaching that language.
Isn't that interesting? Just like the French horn story, that the demographic of someone can totally affect your perception, even if you're completely subconscious about it. Like, I'd imagine that just based off of statistics, a native speaker would be less better at teaching someone English compared to like a Filipino, for example, which is a crazy thing to be able to say.
I think a lot of this is not necessarily prejudice. It's not that it's not, but it's bias. And I say this, and Ted, you'll appreciate this. Growing up on the streets of Brooklyn, there was this one kid, a la, Nate Robinson or Spud Webb, that he could touch the top of the backboard, but he wasn't tall. And he would just hustle up money because no one believed he could do it. Because they looked at him and they said impossible. And then they lost their money. That's how it works. I think I agree. I think all business should be conducted completely blind. No picture, voice changer. Give me your pitch, a la Shark Tank. That's how you know. Because we get confused, distracted. It's obstruction, distortion, fancy videos, nice cars, stacks of money. And it's not helpful. It's not. You miss out on what the skill is. If someone has worked on their craft, they're going to be good at it. As opposed to someone who assumes they're good at it because they've just been doing it. Not really practicing the craft, but they were born into it, or whatever the case may be. It's a whole different vibe. But the anomalies happen, and it can be a punch in the face or a hit to your wallet if the person's a hustler. And that's how that goes.
It's been said many times, ignorance is bliss. We have our own perception of our identity, our self-awareness, and then other people have a perception of who we are. One of the things that can be shocking for people in the past is to send a letter out to people in their lives. Oftentimes you'd want to do this to a lot of people, 5, 10 would be good. And it's an anonymous letter, right? And hey, fill out this thing about me, just take 5 minutes and just fill out this thing about who I am and mail it back to me. I won't know who it came from. It's already postmarked and all that. I did this one time like 15 years ago for, education thing I was doing. And I was shocked. I couldn't believe some of the negative things that people thought about me. I'm like, golly, that is so mean. Which one of you said that? Or which 4 of you said that? So today, you can do the same thing without asking anybody for their time by going onto ChatGPT or Grok or any of the other AI tools and saying, hey, ask me 10 questions to reveal a blind spot in my life. Help me become more self-aware. And maybe the end result is The perception of you after you answer these questions is that you are controlling. The perception of you after you answer these questions is that you are greedy. The perception of you after you answer these questions is that you are lazy, whatever it may be. And I imagine they also say positive things like you are ambitious, or you are, a visionary, or you are generous. It doesn't have to be negative necessarily. And so the question is on the topic of what impact does innovation and technology make on our identity? My initial response is it does. That's the answer. What impact? There is one. It's definitely making an impact. The thing that people have to be mindful of is, do you want technology to help you understand yourself better? Are you wearing a smartwatch that tells you kind of like your heart rate, your resting heart rate, how much exercise you're getting? Are you taking and putting in the food that you're eating? Are you journaling what's happening in your life? And are you sharing that with the technology to kind of be a reflective mirror back to you? Do you want awareness of who you are, or the perception of who you are, or would you prefer ignorance? Because as we march down the road of the future, as we enter next month, next year, technology is going to make a more profound impact on the identity of people around us than it's making today. It's going to be more significant every single month because technology and innovation are screaming ahead. Do we want the end result? Do we want to know these things, or would we prefer to be ignorant? So for the last minute and a half or so, any final thoughts from the five of you?
The best AI is human AI, and I think that we need to spend more time around people that love and support us and lean into them giving us feedback over AI, because who knows where that data is going to go. And I don't mean to be all fear mongering, but I think ultimately the people who love and care about you, who are around you, are the best indicators of what you want to find out, if you want to find out. So ask.
The last thought I want to leave us with, if we have time, is we need to be more intentional about our identity, what we get our identity, how we're using our identity, and not let it just happen to us, but to make sure we're intentional about how we're identifying ourselves and who we're identifying ourselves with.
Dan, Malachi, any final thoughts before we wrap up our day?
Yeah. Love yourself. Your identity is everything. And for what you heard for the last couple of hours, I mean, we may have, kind of got a little philosophical, or maybe got deep, or even religious, or theological. But the most important thing is we're here now, and you can move forward on anything that you feel is necessary or that might be helpful for your life. So your identity is the most important thing you're going to live with. It's like keeping to your word, the old handshake. It's the best way of signing a contract of who you are in this world is your identity. So yeah. I say we should always continue to work on it, be conscious of it. I'm glad we had the conversation about it, because it at least brings up the point of we can always do better. So be cognitive of it.
Malachi?
Give me a query. Some kind of question.
Just final thoughts before we wrap up.
Identity is so important. It's unbelievable how influential being a human in today's world is going to be for the future.
That is true. Well, we're grateful to have you join us. Tomorrow it will be Dan and Nigel here on the radio at 1340 a.m. KOMY, Home of Schoolhouse Radio, and the rest of us will be back on Monday. Goodbye, everybody. See you again soon. Ted and Nigel, was there an echo again for you guys?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because I had forgotten to mute you on here, and I don't know if that's part of, but I did have, yeah. Again, Nigel, for all the internet people, Nigel and I were just talking about how even Gary Vaynerchuk, Malachi, these ones with the coffee cup, these are mine because I can't stand my head being smashed, so I bent these things I can't stand it.
Did they bend?
Yeah, they bend. Look at this. These things are
Your
like
head is larger than average, but we're not using that in a metaphorical sense. Just really little.
It feels so good. I love it. I couldn't stand it. I'm tired of this thing hurting my ears.
That was aggressive.
And not tight at all. Huh?
Oh man, I don't like
think I need to
things.
do that a little bit too.
I don't like things tight.
Did they break?
No, they're fine.
There's a piece of metal. You can
Yeah, no,
actually bend.
they're totally fine. Well, Nigel and Dan, I think it'd be great to have the two of you rock and roll here. And for the internet, the six of us will be back. I'm gonna try to rope in Riza more often. Riza is often helping me manage the production and sharing this across the socials, interacting with people, and I love to hear her voice, and I've gotten more of that feedback lately. So Nigel, Ted, please remember to leave the upload thing open so we can capture that. And Nigel, Kristen, our producer, gave us all of your and Dan's one-on-one shows, the tunes that you guys did when we were gone, and all the Fridays since August 8th. So
Send
that,
them over.
yeah, I'm sending them over to you guys. They're on a Google Drive, I think.
Sweet.
Teddy, we'll see you soon. Ted, let's jump on with the meeting that I text you about. And everyone out there in internet land, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your attention. We know how valuable attention is in this economy. And we are looking for doing some pretty cool progressive things moving forward.
One last fun fact to all you Filipinos who are following us or non-native language speakers. I did the research to back up to see if Malachi was just making, just speaking out of his head or if it was validated, but his intuition was right. Peer-reviewed studies show that non-native and native speakers have equal strengths, and you can't say one is better than the other. It has to do with the teacher and the context. Both have strengths and weaknesses. So there you go. It is proven, and
All right.
ChatGPT validates it.
Peace, everybody.
So